For nearly 30 years, the image of American ground forces in the Middle East represented a specific kind of military certainty. After the rapid collapse of the Iraqi army in the 1990s, the U.S. military established a reputation for absolute, uncontested dominance. That reputation created a psychological barrier. Rivals and regional powers operated under the assumption that a direct challenge to American interests would trigger a response that was both immediate and impossible to survive. But that assumption is now being tested. The United States is currently requesting international assistance to secure the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow trade route that handles a significant portion of the world's energy. Despite having the world's most expensive navy, Washington signals it cannot manage this specific choke point alone. To meet the security needs of the strait, the U.S. has reached out to global partners and even geopolitical rivals. They have publicly called on China to deploy its own naval assets to help protect international shipping lanes from regional interference. By seeking a coalition to handle a regional actor, the U.S. has signaled a shift in its capabilities. The security umbrella that once deterred conflict through the threat of unilateral force is now being replaced by a plea for shared responsibility. The political message from Washington is one of total success. The U.S. president has claimed that Iran has already been defeated militarily and economically, suggesting the threat has been neutralized. However, the situation on the ground suggests otherwise. Iran is not operating like a contained or defeated nation. It is actively demonstrating its ability to project power far beyond its borders. Tehran recently showcased the Sejal-2, a two-stage solid-fuel ballistic missile with a 2,000-kilometer range. Solid-fuel technology allows these to be preloaded and launched quickly, making them much harder for U.S. air defenses to track and destroy on the ground. Diplomatically, Iran is using these capabilities to challenge American authority. Their foreign minister has publicly stated that the American security shield is full of holes, highlighting the gap between U.S. rhetoric and its actual ability to deter Iranian movement. Tehran is also pressuring its neighbors to change their security alliances. Irani officials are calling on states like Saudi Arabia and the UAE to expel foreign aggressors, specifically U.S. forces, from their territory entirely, framing the American presence as the primary source of instability. Through these missile tests and diplomatic maneuvers, Iran is contesting the narrative of American victory. They are demonstrating to the international community that they remain an active, uncontained force in the region. The geography of the Strait of Hormuz makes it a critical point for global energy security. A significant percentage of the world's crude oil must pass through this single choke point to reach the global market. If the strait is blocked, analysts project oil prices could rise to $200 a barrel immediately. For the U.S. economy, this would trigger a massive inflation spike. The rising cost of goods could threaten the entire domestic economic system. While the U.S. Navy is formidable in open water combat, it struggles to protect commercial shipping from asymmetric attacks within a narrow strait. This specific tactical limitation is what forced the call for a global coalition. Defense analysts have pointed out a significant flaw in the current operation. While the U.S. military execution remains technically proficient, there is no clear long-term political strategy or defined objective for how the conflict actually ends. The U.S. appears to be caught in a reactive cycle. The immediate need to prevent a global economic shock has taken priority over achieving a decisive military result, leaving American forces in a state of costly, indefinite maintenance. In this type of attrition, the definition of victory changes. If Iran can sustain a stalemate for several months and eventually force a ceasefire, it will be viewed globally as a strategic win for a regional power over a superpower. The international community is watching this stalemate closely. Other nations are recalculating their own security strategies based on the visible limits of American naval and air defense capabilities in the Middle East. Adversaries are drawing specific conclusions from the standoff. If a middle-tier power like Iran can successfully challenge U.S. control of a vital trade route, larger powers with more advanced arsenals may conclude that the risk of challenging the U.S. elsewhere is lower than previously thought. This shift in perception directly affects the strategic goals of rivals like China and Russia. They are observing a U.S. military that is currently overextended, potentially emboldening them to take more aggressive actions in their own regional spheres of influence. The standoff in Hormuz indicates that the era of uncontested U.S. dominance over global maritime security is ending. As the singular deterrent effect of the U.S. military fades, the likelihood of larger regional conflicts becomes a more concrete reality for the rest of the world.